So the advice for today is to not be afraid to ask questions. Now that might not seem like much advice, or you might think, well, that's kind of obvious. But let me explain where I'm coming from. So in the world of software, and in the world of many other industries or many other interests, especially where the internet's involved and this modern way of bringing people together, specifically where they're not face to face, what forms is you end up with opinions in groups, and people form these kind of groups, and they're very strong in their opinions. And because they are not directly face to face with you, when you ask questions, you can get some you get fairly harsh answers. You'll get a lot of people that are far more aggressive and are far more daring to do things because they're not sitting next to you. They feel like it's a crime, if you will, they can commit without any repercussions. And this goes for things like cyberbullying as well. So I know a lot of young kids suffer from cyberbullying. And it's the same kind of principle. It's the fact that when people aren't next to you, or they feel they can just text on a phone or send an email or write a message online, they're behind this kind of wall, if you will. And it's a dilution of concern and responsibility. And a lot of behavioral analysts and a lot of smart people have done multiple studies on these things. And it's a very well-known pattern in behavior. And it's kind of this almost this dilution of responsibility when you're in a group, for one. So if you're in a pack of friends and you're walking down the street, and they tell you to do something, it's a bit more daring. Say you want to insult somebody or kick somebody or smash a shop window. If you were on your own or with two people, you'd be a lot less inclined to do that. But say there was 50 of you, or there was a riot going on, people feel that they can then behave in a different way because they can blame their actions on a pack. And it's this dilution of responsibility. And the same goes in the software world for people that insult people online, and hence the purpose of this video to say don't be afraid to ask questions, because you will get this kind of behavior. You will get, if you ask a question or pose an opinion or say something, you will instantly, especially in today's age, like I say, you will be swarmed with hundreds of people trying to always put you down, always say you're wrong, always say you haven't asked a question right. It's a very, very negative world we live in. And you just simply have to learn to not take that to heart, to deal with it. That's the world. There's a lot of idiots in the world. There's a lot of nasty people in the world. You don't want to presume anybody is those type of people. And I always say try and be respectful and never call people idiots or never do things. But the bottom line is some people simply are. Now, it's not about identifying bad people or doing anything about that. It's simply you sometimes need help. You need to ask questions. And what's going to hinder your progress, especially as a young developer and somebody that wants to find a way, they need to ask questions. You're going to have to go online. You're going to have to find things. And it's about, don't feel afraid to ask those questions. You'll ask a question, maybe all the time you'll get good responses, but I can almost guarantee there'll be plenty of times where you get a bad response, or somebody calling you an idiot or telling you you've done everything wrong. And all you need to do with that comment is either ignore it completely and just wait for somebody else to respond, or just to simply be humble and say, well, I'm asking a question because I simply don't know. I may be an idiot to you, but I'm still after my answer. Can you please educate me constructively on how I should ask this question better, or where I should begin to look? Approach it in a more, be the better person, basically. Let them be here and make yourself here. Don't lower yourself to their debating level, because you will hit this online all the time. And I don't want that to impact your learning and your confidence. That is just the way of the world. You are going to get people like that. And the only way I can say to deal with it, as I mentioned, is to just not take it to heart. Don't worry about those comments. That just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean that's true or right or correct. People can say whatever they like. But if you decide to take that on board and think that they're right, that's what will then harm your progression, because you'll start to be, you don't want to answer questions. So I'm very good at handling situations like that. I've had it all my life. I've had it since I was very young in every different area for many different reasons. And I've kind of learned to deal with that very well. But it can even get to me sometimes. So I started to just answer some questions on, Stack Overflow, or one of these sites that everybody seems to visit for responses. And I thought, well, I'll start trying to give back and answer some people's questions on there. And I did it for 1 week. And I just got fed up of basically one guy just trolling everything I said. And apparently this one guy was very well known. He's apparently meant to be one of the best people on there, or rather, to be honest, more the most opinionated person on there, revolving around tasks in C#. And it was wrong, bottom line. He didn't know what he was talking about. He was very book smart. He'd read everything about the theory of things and what things should do. But then what I was doing is answering people's questions the way I do, in a very simple, easy to understand and code specific way. And it's all revolved, I won't bore you with the details, but it basically revolved around the fact that, a task doesn't always use a thread. And the answer to that is yes, it does. Always. 1,000,000%, always, forever, always will do. You want to know why? All computer code runs on threads. Full stop. No more arguing. Everything that's on a computer runs on a thread. CPUs are thread-based processors. So everything you do is thread-based. And the debate went about I/O ports on hardware, and I was mentioning, well, that still uses a thread. You've still got to wait on the hardware that's doing the work to return to you, and that's a thread. Long story short, I understand all that. I build hardware, so it's not like I'm just doing the software. I also know the hardware. There's no mystery there to me. There's no complication. There's no doubt in my knowledge. I know I am right on that subject. So it's kind of, I was putting my opinion to the people. I was getting upvoted for good answers. But then I kept getting this one person trolling every single thing I said to say it's wrong and read a book and point me to references. And me being me, I simply defended myself and provided source code every single time to every question to back up what I'd said. But after a week of kind of doing this, I got fed up of, the benefit was giving people an answer, but the downside was I was sick to death of somebody trolling me for giving advice. So, there are going to be some times where you simply say, well, it's not worth it. And that was one of the times for me. So I no longer bother posting on Stack Overflow because one guy simply likes to troll what I say. And I've got better things to do. I can do these videos. So that's really all the advice is. Like I say, expect a lot of people, a lot of trolls, a lot of bad people, and a lot of commenters, but really just try to ignore 99% of them and try and find the answer you're after from the one guy that comes along like me and gives you a nice, humble and honest answer. And then in order to progress and better that in this world, you can try and become that type of person yourself as well, because there's far too few of, nice, humble people. So anyway, that was a little rant, but hopefully the point I was making has come across very clear now, and that it's to really just try and not be afraid to ask those questions, form a bit of a hard skin when you're online and kind of ignore most of the people, because it's not just you, it's not the way you're asking things, it's simply the way of the world. There are a lot of people like that in there. So hopefully this video was useful. Any questions or comments, or you want to make a discussion, just comment in the video, and I answer every single comment. And hopefully you've enjoyed this little piece of advice.